Where does the collapse of Europe fit into perhaps the demise of the American empire, but also this transition away from capitalism?
Yeah, I think for me, partly as someone whose ancestors are largely European, um, here's the way it appears to me. I grew up in an environment in which history was presented in the following lopsided way. It kind of starts with Greece and Rome and then evolves into the modern period. And I've been regaled with the Greek Empire, the Roman Empire, Athenian democracy, Roman slavery, the Middle Ages, the arrival of the big European states, the clashes that produced colonialism, in which Europe becomes the dominant power on the whole globe and carves up the whole globe among the European nations. That famous conference in Berlin in 1884, when they literally sat in front of a map of Africa and carved up. Germany would get this, and France would get that, and Britain that. And then the explosions that we call World Wars I and II, which were mostly, not all, but mostly European events. Europe is the center. Europe is the dominant. Europe is where I look to learn about literature and science. And now Europe is becoming more and more an unimportant corner of the world. It is becoming what it used to look at the global south as, an unimportant little corner of the world, good for growing bananas or rubber plants or something else. Now Europe is itself becoming a small corner. The modern development of high technology, it's a non-European event. It happens in the United States. It happens in China. It doesn't happen anymore in Europe. The major industries that are growth industries are elsewhere. The industries of Europe are dying, are disappearing, are shrinking. There's a joke that England is on its way back to being what it once was, a cold, wet, offshore island of the continent of Europe. But there's wisdom and truth in all of that. The center of activity, the locus of growth, it's all elsewhere. Europe is less and less important. The war in Ukraine, which is a war in Europe, is being decided by the United States, which isn't in Europe, and Russia sitting down and talking, Russia that has declared itself and its future to be Asian. Literally, people are walking away from Europe. And pretty soon, you're going to see scientific people, artistic people leaving Europe. Europe is going to become a tourist destination, and not a whole hell of a lot more, unless they're very careful. This is staggering. This is the relative decline of Western civilization and the rise of, I don't know what we're going to call it, Eastern civilization or Global South civilization. Enormous changes that include the decline of this system, which was a product of Europe's dominance. Capitalism. Begins in England, that's part of Europe. It grows in Europe first. It grows in Europe the most. It enables Europe to take over the whole world and bring capitalism to the rest of the world through its colonialism. But now the rest of the world has begun to take that capitalism, develop it in new ways, and now we are all at the cusp of moving on. Capitalism will have done all it could. Again, Marx's comment. Capitalism won't disappear until it has tried every possible way, every form of continuing its life. And we are seeing a range of forms: Anglo-American private capitalism, Scandinavian socialism, Soviet socialism, China socialism with the Chinese quality or Chinese face. I think we're at the end of that, and I think that the demise of Europe is itself a symptom, a sign, an accompaniment, if you like, to the decline of capitalism. Each of them feeds on the other. Europe is committed to older capitalism. It was, it had the benefit of being there a long time. It had the benefit of its long history, but it also had the burden of its long history. It couldn't adjust fast enough. Very old story. The very capitalism it brings into being then blossoms even more elsewhere than where it was born. That happens. And it was better for European development of capitalism. That capitalism did better elsewhere than it did in Europe. It grew faster in the United States. It's then grown even faster in China, leaving the Europeans behind. Marx's theory of uneven development, there it is. And I think people should dwell on it, because there is nothing so dramatic as the decline of Europe that you see now. It is the only thing more impressive to many of us than the decline of Europe is the denial of the decline of Europe. It is amazing. One watches really minor politicians in the world picture, like Keir Starmer or Emmanuel Macron, talking as if they were the head of the country France and England once were, but aren't anymore. You look at Britain and you see the pomp and circumstance of the coronation of King Charles. There it is. All the drama, all the pomp, all the circumstance of an empire that isn't there anymore. They just have the coach and the horses and the to-do, the simulacrum of what it once was, not the reality. And Mr. Macron, emerging from the Élysée Palace today, one begins to laugh, because you're watching what is either a clown or someone mimicking a clown, or a clown so far gone he doesn't know he's a clown. And that's very funny, except for the French, who are now toying. Half of France wants to believe with him and supports him because he's the symbol. And the other half, like the rest of the world, says, go away, you are anachronistic, leftover, way out of place.
And just like that, the West's hegemony is replaced by the East's.
Yeah.
But now...
Well, no. That's very important. And it's a topic of itself. What comes next? There are two options. There's a choice. The Chinese could become the next empire. And Lord knows there might be a logic to it. They once had empires in China. They have some practice. They have some history. United States, it's de nouveau here. It's all from scratch, from the beginning. But there's an alternative. And the Chinese say, for them, the future is this alternative. And it's a genuine multinationalism. Why not think that the world, might be better off without an empire, any empire, that we shouldn't replace the British with the American with the fill in the blank, that maybe we should learn that precisely because empires go up and then go down, and the going down is painful and difficult and expensive and risky, maybe we avoid that. Maybe we take this moment of the down of the American empire and join with the Chinese. Let's try to set up a genuinely multinational operation. Let's try. We made the first effort with the League of Nations. We made the second effort with the United Nations. They were good. They were not sufficient. Maybe something can be done now when we are self-conscious enough to admit where we are. The UN wasn't created out of a sense of the decline of the British. That was not in the air. That was not spoken. The British didn't believe it. They made the UN before they lost India, etc., etc.